Sowieso.
Also Zippo.
All right, we've got about 8 people, still waiting for quite a few more to join. All right, 14. Here we go. 1, 2 is here. Right, almost ready to start.
Okay, I'm back.
Okay, cool, good. I think we're almost ready to start. Almost ready to start. Restart. Where's this? Okay. Okay, good. Guys and girls, let's carry on. Let me then share my screen and let's have a look at where we are at. There we go, and there we go. Okay, so again, let's just do a very quick recap. We're talking about the managing and leading people stuff. And we started off with leadership. We talked about Aztec. and how we would lead it, which led us to the leadership style. We then went on to management versus leadership. We then went on to leadership pipeline, and that led us to this list. Remember, this list is still vitally important when it comes to an exam. We've talked about how to guide and direct. We've talked about how to delegate. We've also talked about how to motivate. Before we go on to the others, I just want to add in another model. Remember, I said when we talked about intrinsic motivation that we can't motivate our people, but we need to create an environment conducive to motivation. So it's not directly a theory on motivation, but it links to motivation. And let me just go on to that. I just want to stop this for a moment, see that we're okay. Cool. Good. So basically, we're still talking indirectly about motivation, but we have a different model that I want to introduce, and that's a concept. When I asked you how do we motivate people, with intrinsic motivation is if you can't motivate them, what can you do? I think Musa, you said we need to engage people, and so now we move on to theory on employee engagement. So let's be clear, this is not as such a theory on motivation, but it links nicely to motivation. And even if you aren't motivating your people, you should, as a manager, be able to engage your people. And we look at a theory on employee engagement. Right, and this is based, and there's many theories on engagement. This is based on the work of Gallup. It's in your notes. And basically, what are these guys saying? Is they're saying engagement, they have a theory on engagement. What I like about it is a couple of things. I like the concept. Right? Maybe I can't motivate my people, don't know what motivation means perhaps, but let's talk about how do I engage my people. So I like the concept. Secondly, I like the way they present it. They present it in a hierarchy, similar to Maslow. You've got one layer, then another layer, then another layer, then you get to the top. So almost like you have Maslow, you have a hierarchy here. I like that. And then thirdly, I like the way they measure engagement and the way they categorize each level. Okay, so basically what are they saying? Well, they're saying that if you're going to have people working for you, you need to make sure they are engaged. And then this is their model. And basically the best way I can describe it is to say, let's go through each of the layers. Let's imagine I have people working for me. I've got a team of 5 people. It's their very first day. The first day they come and work for me, and they get to work on their very first day. And let's imagine when they get to work on the very first day, they have no clue what their job is. They have no skills or tools to do anything, and they have no knowledge of what to do. So they don't know what to do. They have no skills to do anything. They have no tools to do anything, right? What are they going to do all day?
They're going to basically observe what the company is about and how things are being done around the company.
Yeah. And what are they physically going to do all day is drink coffee and do nothing.
No, I wouldn't say drink coffee and do nothing. They're going to be observing.
So basically what we're saying here is they can't do anything because they don't even know what the job is. They don't have any skills and they don't have any tools. So you're right, they can observe, but they actually can't do anything for me. So for me to say that my staff are at least at base camp, in other words, they're not the best people, but they at least come to work and do something, they have to be able to answer yes to these 3 questions. Starting from the bottom, can my staff say, yes, I've got the skills to do my job? Can they say, yes, I know what is expected from me at work? And can they say, yes, I have the material and equipment to do my work correctly? Because if they can say yes and yes and yes, then at least they come to work, they know what to do, they know they've got the skills and they've got the tools. So what these guys, Gallup, are saying is the basic level of employee engagement is they must be able to answer yes to those questions. In other words, what do I get? And here we're not talking what do I get from a money point of view to be at base camp. We're saying, do I at least know what the job is? Do I at least have the skills? Do I at least have the tools? In other words, do I get what I need to get to be able to do the job? So for me to say my staff are at base camp, first level of engagement, they've got to be able to say yes, yes, and yes. And if they can say yes, at least I've got my people at base camp. However, I want more. I don't want them just coming to work and doing the minimum because they know what the job is and they've got skills and tools. I need them to give their best. So camp 1, the next level up is how do I get them to do their best, to give their best? And for me to say I've moved my people from base camp to camp 1, I've got to be able to answer, my staff have to be able to answer yes to these questions. Can my staff say, yes, I've had recognition in the last 7 days. Yes, somebody at work or the supervisor cares for me. Yes, somebody is encouraging my development, and therefore, yes, I do what I do best every day. In other words, I give my best. And if my staff are saying yes to these three questions, and yes, 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 and yes to those questions, then at least I've got people who come to work, they know what to do, they can do it, and they do it to the best of their ability. They do their best every day. That kind of person who's here is more valuable than somebody who's sitting there. Right, so that's level 2 of engagement. Can my staff say yes there and the yes there? But I want more. I don't just want them to come and do their best. I want my people to feel like they belong. I want them to feel like they are part of this team, this organization, this division, or this department. In other words, I want my people to be at Camp 2. For me to say my people are at Camp 2, they've got to answer yes to these questions as well as the other questions. Can my staff say yes? The mission and purpose of the company is not only clear to me, in other words, not only do I understand it, but I agree with it. Can they say co-workers are committed to quality? In other words, it's not just me trying to do a good job, but we are trying to do a good job. Can they say they have a best friend at work? That one I cannot guarantee. But very importantly is, can my staff say that at work, my opinions seem to count? And if my staff are saying yes to level, the first one, base camp, and yes to camp 1, and they are saying yes to these questions at camp 2, then I've got people who not only come to work, they come to work and give their best. They come to work, they give their best, and they feel like they belong. They belong here, they're important here, and these people are starting to be very valuable employees. Why? Because they are basically engaged. Okay, let me just check something here. Sorry. I just want to check something here. There's some people. I don't seem to get that. Okay, cool. Right, guys, girls, does that make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
So I want my people at base camp, then I want to move them to camp 1. Now I need them to get I need to get them to camp 2. They feel like they belong. All right, and now I want them to get to the summit. All right, I need to get them to the summit. One more coming in. I need to get them to the summit, and basically for me to say my staff are at the summit, sorry, I'm losing this here. For me to say my staff are at the summit, I've got to basically be able to get them to say yes. Yes, I've had opportunities in 6 months, sorry, in the last 6 months, my progress, as in my career progress, have been discussed, and I've had opportunities to learn and grow in the last year. And that is the summit. In other words, not only do I belong, but now I feel like I am growing. If this company does well, if we do well, I do well. In other words, we can all grow, we can all progress. And that is then the summit, that is the ultimate level, according to Gallup, of engagement. Okay. So basically why I like it is, as I say, I like the concept, I like the way they present it, I like the way they interrogate it. But this is the other reason I like it, is because if we go back to intrinsic motivation, which says I cannot motivate my people. I cannot motivate my people, but as we agreed, I need to create an environment conducive to motivation. And this, I believe, is the environment that is conducive to motivation, to intrinsic motivation, to self-motivation. If my people can answer yes and yes and yes and yes, this is a very nice place to work. And this is a place where it is therefore easy to be self-motivated. So this, I believe, is not only a standalone concept that you need to engage your staff, but it also answers the question on what is the environment I need to create to have engaged people. So that's why I like the model. All right. Happy so far, guys? Any questions so far?
Carl,
Mm.
do you think doing one-on-ones with your team monthly or quarterly, does it add any value in a team, or in terms of engagement with your employees?
Yeah. Okay, Musa, the answer in simple terms is yes, but. So the answer is yes. It does add value. You should be having regular communication and engagement with your staff, and that's why monthly, I believe, monthly one-on-ones are important. The reason I say yes, but the but is if you are just going through the motions. All right, if you're just going through the motions of, oh, it's time for our monthly session, let's just pretend to talk, or let's just talk. And that's what quite often happens when we have our performance management systems or our performance appraisals, is we do a quarterly review and we have a one-on-one, and that is hollow. It adds no value. That's the but. Then I'm saying, well, you're wasting your time. But the basic principle is you need to have engaged people. To have engaged people, they need to know what to do, when to do it. So therefore, I believe your one-on-ones have to be there, but they have to be valuable. They have to be driven because you want them, not because your company tells you you have to run them. Does that make sense, Musa?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay, hi, Carl.
Yes, hi.
Yeah, I think, on my opinion, I think most of the organization, they do adhere to the engagement of the employees because, for instance, like most of the time when they employ a new guy, they've got the induction or the orientation where you go through the company policies and procedures, the different the departments. Maybe there sometimes you've got people that come and present what they do in that department. And then also again, they induct you about your own jobs, what will be your responsibilities. And then there's the preparation period whereby they give you about maybe sometimes about 3 months, and then there's a party system. That's when they allocate to when they deploy you to that particular department, they give you there's somebody who's going to take you along. So I think most of the organization on this one, they do comply.
Okay. Senzo, I certainly agree they're important, and I hope they do comply. I think some do it better than others, but yes, what you're describing is the way it should be. And if it's done in that way and it's done properly, well, then it adds a lot of value. It adds a lot of value. Okay.
Carl, just to add maybe in terms of the monthly one-on-ones discussion, what I have seen working actually for me is that we do, yes, in terms of performance or deliverables for the team, we will have those monthly discussions with the individuals. But what I actually introduce is that don't wait for our set meeting day if there's any blockers for you or you won't be able to deliver. And now and then, well, let's have that informal chat. Let's go for coffee, and maybe if there's anything, maybe even in your personal space, that's maybe a bit of an issue for you. Let's have a chat about it. Let's not wait for a set meeting.
Okay, so exactly. And again, we are going to come back to many of these points under performance management, so that it shouldn't just be driven by the company says you must hold a review. These are things that you should do. Remember what we said when it comes to motivating your people. I said you've got to treat everyone the same and everyone differently. You've got to know your people, and that's how you get to know your people. And I like what you're saying. Let's go and have coffee. Let's have a chat. And some people want to chat a lot and some people want to chat a little. It doesn't matter. But this is where you are debating those issues, discussing the issues, what's working, what's not working. This is where, through that coffee discussion, sometimes you're finding out what the hygiene factors are for this person. What are the motivational factors for this person? Is this person power, achievement, affiliation? And you're not interrogating them. You're having a good conversation with them to understand where they're at. And that's why it is valuable. So yeah, I think it is very important. I do not understand how one can motivate and manage and engage a team when you're hardly ever spending time with a team. And again, it goes back to my point later, is if I'm managing 20, 25 people, that's tough. But basically, that's what one wants to do. If we're having a look at that, Pagiso, that sort of informal chat or formal chat, this is where you are checking all of these things in terms of the engagement module. Do you have the materials? Do you have the skills? Give the guy some recognition. Give him some praise. What's his development? Where does he see himself going? What you're doing is you're also showing very strongly that you care. This guy is not just a number, he's a person. And this is where you're trying to make sure he understands the mission, purpose, blah, blah, blah. And now we can start seeing how we can increase engagement level through those people. And coming back, I think it was Musa, I don't think you can have engaged people if you're not interacting with your people. So those one-on-ones are very, very valuable, but they have to be real one-on-ones, not the sort of company says have a meeting, so I pretend to have a meeting, blah, blah, blah. If you're really engaging, you're communicating, you're getting to know your people. So yeah. Okay, happy so far, guys?
Oh,
yes.
How would you address your manager with something like this in regards to engaging your employees? If you know that that's not happening and you know that by introducing it, it will make a difference.
Okay. So basically, I think 2 points. Firstly, when it comes to any of these questions, Roxy, of how do I get this to work in my organization? I think the first thing we have to understand is what I call your sphere of control. I cannot force my boss to do this with me. I cannot force my boss to do this with other departments. I cannot force the company to do it, but I can sure as hell do it within my department. And I can do it more formally by discussing with my boss what I want to do, or I can do it kind of informally if I have to, of just engaging with my people, chatting with my people, how's it going? If I had to and nobody else does it in the company and they frown on it, I can have a WhatsApp group with my people, I can have a WhatsApp discussion one-on-one with my staff. So the bottom line is, in first prize, Roxy, is you would say to your boss, here's a theory, this looks good, I want to try this with my team. All right. And I would hope that there's no pushback. The response I would imagine is, hey, that's great, or couldn't care less, do whatever you want. So basically, I would like to believe that no one's going to stop you from doing this.
Okay.
But first prize is they support it and they encourage it. But if not, hey, nothing stops you from engaging with your people, having one-on-ones, having chats, having discussions. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, cool. Anything else, guys? Okay. What I want to then look at, and this to me is really interesting for people who are team leaders, supervisors, managers, is if we look at this list and we go from the bottom to the top. And that links to what Musa was saying and Pogiso was saying in terms of one-on-ones and discussions. But let's go from the bottom to the top. How many of these points here from the bottom to the top are not, if not totally, at least partially in your control as a team leader, supervisor, or manager? So we go from the bottom. If I'm a team leader or supervisor or manager in a typical company here in South Africa, do I have an influence? What influence do I have on each of these? Can I have an impact on my staff knowing the skills or having the skills to do the job? And my answer to that is not only can you, you should do. If your staff do not have the skills to do the job, guess what? You haven't done your job. Okay? So not only is that partially in your control, that is totally in your control. Can you make sure that they know what is expected from them at work? That is totally in your control. If they don't know what is expected from them, then guess what? You haven't done your job. Totally in your control. Have the material and equipment to do my work correctly, at least partially in your control. I can't always go and buy my staff the latest laptop or whatever, but I can try and make sure they've got the material. So the first one is totally in your control. Second one is totally in your control. Third one is at least partially in your control. Recognition in the last 7 days is totally in your control. Somebody cares, totally in your control. Encourages development, that's in your control. I might not be able to send my staff on an expensive training course, but I can try and encourage their development. And you can therefore try and get them to do their best every day. Sorry, what am I doing here? It's going the wrong way. There we go. So at least most of these are totally, if not partially, in your control. Mission and purpose of the company is an interesting one. I cannot force my staff to accept the mission and purpose, but I can certainly make sure they understand it. And certainly the mission and purpose of the department, if not the whole company. I can get co-workers to try to be committed to quality. I cannot guarantee a best friend, but I can sure as hell make sure my staff's opinions count by listening to their opinions and valuing their opinions. I can try and discuss their progress, and I can try and give them opportunities to learn and grow. The point that I'm making is, I keep doing this, many of these are at least partially, if not totally, in your control. And that means that we can have an impact on the level of engagement of our staff. Because so often I hear people, supervisors, team leaders, middle managers saying, yes, but the company doesn't do this and the company doesn't do that and my boss doesn't do that. And that's often true. It's also often very frustrating. But the point is there's a whole lot of stuff we can do. All right, because you can do many of these things. In fact, you should do many of these things. And that means that we can therefore impact on and affect the level of engagement in our organization. Guys, does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so basically that's why I like this model. And what it also does, coming back to where we started, is it gives me a framework for what do I do for intrinsic motivation. I can't motivate my people, but hey, if I can do all of these things, I'm creating an environment where it is a lot easier to be self-motivated. So that's why I like it. This is the concept of engagement. If you were answering a question on motivation in the exam, although this is not directly a theory on motivation, you could use this. It could apply very nicely. What is also interesting is they did some research, and you can see across the bottom of the screen there. And this was done many years ago, but it is still interesting to see. They interviewed almost 200,000 employees from almost 8,000 business units, 36 companies, 21 different industries, and they found these results. Of those 200,000 people, 26% would be classified as engaged, 55% were not engaged, In other words, they go to work to get paid, go to work, do something and get paid. 19% actively disengaged. Actively disengaged means you actually work against the organization. You go to work, you do damage, you break something, you steal something, you're actually working against the organization. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in my view, and this was done in the USA and it was done many years ago, but that is a very, very sad picture. That means that 1/4, 26%, 1/4 of 200,000 people actually want to be there. More than half, 55%, are there to just earn a salary. And 20%, almost 20%, which is almost 1/5, are there to do damage. Now that is really, really a sad picture. If we look at South Africa, this was American figures. If we look at South Africa, are we better? Are we worse? Are we the same? What are your views?
My views would be, we would be actually a lot worse.
Okay, why, Roxy?
Because a lot of the times, I think if South Africa doesn't get, or the people that don't get their way, or feel that they've been listened to or anything, they do a lot more damage to our economy than anything else.
Okay.
Instead of working together, we work against each other.
Other views?
Yeah, also on my case, I think in South Africa, yeah, it would be worse.
Okay.
Yeah, because in most of the time you find that the majority of the people are working as laborers. So it's few that are on management. So most of the time they're just there just to earn the salary and go.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment?
For me, I think I do agree with Roxanne and Senzo. I think it would have been worse for us in South Africa. And I think more because of the labor law, because people just go to work to do their 8 hours and their salary. They know they're protected by our labor law.
Correct. Okay, guys, if you have a look at the research, we tend to be getting some worse and we get some very similar. It tends to vary from industry to industry and from time to time. I can certainly tell you we're not better. We may not be much worse. We may be a little bit worse, but we're not better. What tends to vary in South Africa is not the engaged. The engaged is fairly constant. It's usually about 23 to 26%. That doesn't change much. What changes is sometimes instead of 55 here, we've got less not engaged and more actively disengaged. It depends on where we're at. So for an example, if you go back to, when was it, 2013, where we had the biggest platinum strike in the history of the world, basically. If you had a look at the people there, you had a large number of actively disengaged, but that was due to the strike, etc., etc. But certainly I don't think we are much better, and possibly we can be worse. What to me I think is going to be really interesting, and this is quite theoretical, but really interesting, is to see the level of engagement of people post-COVID-19. And what will influence the degree of engagement after the COVID-19 is going to be how companies manage their staff at this stage. Because, you know, companies that are just sort of retrenching people, getting rid of people, not paying people, you're going to find a whole lot of people who may have been engaged before will become not engaged. Those who were not engaged become actively disengaged. So I think from a point of view of leadership of business in South Africa, I think engagement and what we do now is going to have a strong impact on the level of engagement post-COVID-19. But that's just more of a theoretical, interesting debate. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens. Happy so far, guys?
Yes.
Yes.
So a nice model, takes us a bit beyond motivation, gives us something else to have a look at, and it's nice and interesting. Now, we take it a bit further and say, okay, that's cool. Why would I want someone who's engaged, apart from the obvious? And then this is interesting. Is they reckon, and you can play around with the percentages, etc., etc. But bottom line is what they're saying is that people who are engaged, they reckon you'll get 70% overall better performance from an engaged employee. And whether it's 70 or whatever, you can debate. But the principle is logical. You'll get better performance from an engaged person. What is quite interesting is to look at some of those sub-percentages there. They reckon employee retention will be 50% better. Whether it's 50, you can debate. The concept, however, in my mind is a no-brainer. If I'm answering yes to all of those questions, I'm not leaving. You're going to keep me. So it's a good way to retain people is by engaging them. Something that to me is really, really interesting, particularly those that are working in manufacturing and mining, etc., is the next one, which says the safety is 50% better. In other words, the safety performance, the safety record of engaged people is 50% better than the not engaged. Why would that be? Why would it be so much better? What ideas do we have?
I think it's because they are more relaxed at work and they are not rushed in their situation.
Okay, they may be more relaxed, they may be less rushed. Okay, what else? Why else would there be a greater level of engagement, sorry, a greater level of safety from engaged people? Other ideas?
I would say it's because it's a greater teamwork, teamwork effort at the end of the day. So the strenuous tasks isn't just focused on one particular person. They challenge it, or they see it as a team. So they tackle it as a team.
Okay, to come to your point, we do say there that co-workers are committed to quality. In other words, it's not just me, it's we. So that could be part of it as well. What else? What else would cause me to take the safety that much more seriously as an engaged employee than somebody not engaged? Any other ideas?
Okay, Carl, yeah, on my opinion, I think the engaged employees will have a bigger picture of why they are doing what they are doing.
Okay, that's very important. And why would they would have a bigger picture of why they are doing what they're doing. In other words, they're not just doing what they're told, they understand why it is important. Very good point there. Anything else? Okay. The other thing that is important and why safety is so much better, and we'll see it with some of the others as well, is if you look at an engaged employee, right? You've got somebody who's engaged, in other words, they're answering yes to all of those questions. And we have safety policy, right? Safety policy and safety procedures. Whose policy is that? If I'm an engaged person, whose policy is that?
It's ours.
It's yours.
Yeah.
It's yours.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's my policy. It's our policy. This is not, it's not seen as the company policy. This is my policy. Why? Because I belong here. Remember, if we go back to the engagement, all right, I belong. I'm part of this organization. My opinions count. I'm part of this organization. And if I belong here, if I'm part of this organization, it's not the company's safety policy. It's mine. It's ours. And I'm going to adhere to what is mine, right? I'm not wearing the safety shoes because management says I must. I'm wearing safety shoes because we must. So you can see why safety is so much better. I'm engaged. I belong. This is my company. Therefore, these are my policies. All right. Does that kind of make sense? They reckon productivity is even better. All right. And I don't know whether it's 38%, but it's certainly a no-brainer. If I'm engaged, I'm working harder. I'm taking the job more seriously. Another interesting one for most of you and most of your companies is customer measures. Customer measures 56% better. So in other words, my customers are that much happier. Why would that be?
Because we as the employees are much happier. We are a lot more engaged, much more relaxed. Yeah. So just being with everything working so smoothly for us, it will work smoothly for our customers at the end of the day as well.
Correct. What else? Give me another reason. Somebody else.
Yeah, but also the quality will be much better, much more better.
Correct. Why? My productivity is better. My quality is better. Correct. So as Roxy says, more relaxed. Quality is better, so they're getting a better quality product. What else?
Customer centricity will go up because of an engaged staff or employees, because you feel part of it. You feel part of, you want to add value.
Exactly. So guys, again, the same as I said with safety. If I'm looking at customer measures are far better. Whose customers are they?
Ours.
Ours. These are my customers. These are not the company's customers. These are not just those irritating people my company makes me deal with. These are my customers. My customer must be happy. So can you see, I'm going to take it more seriously. And basically that's why you would see, together with all of the other reasons you've given, but that's why my safety is better. This is my policy. My customer satisfaction is better. These are my customers. And they reckon that you can even pull it through to profit, all right? That you make more money. Why? Because I treat the customer better. I deliver more. My productivity is better. My quality is better, etc. And it's an interesting point that you raise is I'm more relaxed. I'm more comfortable. And to a degree, I don't know if I'm more relaxed, but I'm certainly more comfortable. This is my organization. I might not be relaxed because I might be working my butt off because this is my company, my customers, but I'm happier. I'm more content. I'm part of this organization. I belong. I'm important. I'm valued. And that's why you're going to get so much better results. Guys, does this make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Carl, if I can just add on to, sorry, if I can just...
Sorry, Ishmael, you're breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. I just find in my personal experience, when that happens, there's a greater sense of accountability, you know, and responsibility. It's my customers, so I want to see that we actually get the results and customers are obviously satisfied to a greater extent, rather than just passing the buck and says, let somebody else deal with it.
Correct, exactly. And why? Because this is my customer. Why is it my customer? Because I'm part of this organization. So if you have to work back in that chain, it probably started because my boss involved me and he included me. And he said, hey, Carl, how do you think we can go about satisfying our customers? So it was partly my idea. We agreed we were going to do this. I wasn't told I must. I came up with, I was part of. So again, we can go right back to the participative style. I was included. I was involved. I was party. I was part of the solution. We must do A with our customers and not B. Therefore, I'm going to take that seriously because it was partly my idea. And because I'm included and I'm valued, these are my customers, not their customers. And so now I was part of the idea, they're my customers, and now you can see why I would do it so much better. And a nice example related to that, Ishmael, is this is where it's 4:30 and there's a mail that comes in from the customer, and I don't just switch off the laptop and go home. I said, no, wait, this is my customer, he's got an issue. How do I resolve this issue?
Sure.
You know what I mean? I'd go that extra mile because, hey, this is my customer. What if he's got a problem? Okay, so nice examples there. Guys, girls, happy with that? Makes sense?
Happy.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So basically, we've talked about motivation and we've talked about engagement and all nice models and nice theories to understand, and they integrate nicely. Let's go on to then something else here. Let's go on to the next one. I want to come back to transformational leadership just now. And I want to come back to that just now. And where's what I'm looking for, guys? To see. Okay, define empowerment. And I think let's just use the chat box there. Let's imagine I've got a team that work for me. I've got 5 or 6 people, and somebody says, hey, Carl, what you need to do is you need to empower your staff. Okay. And I say, okay, cool. What the hell does that mean? What should I do if you want me to empower your staff? If you guys will just take a second and just put down in the chat box some ideas. What should I do? I need to empower my people. Just put down some ideas and then we can talk about it via the chat. Okay, another few seconds if anyone wants to add to what we have to do to empower our people. We got a good list so far. Another second or two to add if you want to. Okay. Cool, guys, a nice list, and I would agree with those. So if we want to empower people, and when I'm talking empowerment, I'm not talking about BEE, not that that's irrelevant, but I'm talking about your staff and engaging your staff and empowering your staff. So let's just have a look at these, and I would agree with all of them, and I think it's a nice list. Give them more responsibility, yes. Remember, with responsibility has to go skill. So I can't give somebody responsibility if I haven't equipped them to be able to deliver on that responsibility. So have I given them the skill? Have I given them the knowledge? Have I given them the training so that they can take on that responsibility? Give them the ability to make decisions. That's very, very important, because quite often we think empowerment is just about training and development and giving people skills. There's no point in giving somebody a skill if not, I'm not going to allow them to use that skill, right? So in other words, I do need to give them the skill, give them the knowledge, but then I need to give them a responsibility, and I need to allow them to make some decisions. In other words, I need to give them responsibility, but together with responsibility has to be authority. I can't say, wow, I'm going to give you an opportunity, you can try and do this, and you cannot make any decisions. So I've got to give the person some responsibility linked to giving them skills to be able to do it, and then the opportunity to make decisions. So there has to be some kind of authority that they get. And obviously authority is not a blank checkbook, do whatever, but give them some decision-making ability, involve them in decisions, and we say here, employees to make day-to-day decisions, yes, assuming they've got the skills, sense of responsibility. Ishmael, you say upskill them, quite correct. Give them the skill. Provide an environment where employees are given an opportunity to study. So I think that's quite cool. So that is about upskilling them, giving them the knowledge. And again, it is interesting, giving them an environment where they have the opportunity to study. Not all companies can just send people on training courses, but give them an environment where they want to study, support that. There's 101 things that we can learn on the internet and study this and study that. It doesn't necessarily have to cost money. Involve staff in decision-making 100%, let them be part of the solution, give them the tools to be able to perform their duties. In other words, equip them. I'm going to give them a responsibility, I'm going to give them an opportunity, but I've got to equip them to be able to do what they need to do. I like the one of clear career path and individual performance plans. Senzo, I think that is valuable. I do think, I'll come back to something just now, but I think that is good. Collective decision-making, engage them in discussions, more recognition on the work they're doing. This will in turn encourage them to do more and give confidence, yes. Very important, so listen, involve, get their views, get their ideas. Transfer some authority, very good. Exactly what I was saying. They need to have some authority to make a decision. Allow them to build their confidence, help foster new career goals, correct. And I think important is empowerment on a day-to-day basis is not just about creating a career path. I think from a long-term point of view, that is necessary and that is valuable and that is part of empowerment. But empowerment on a day-to-day basis is equipping a person to be able to do more. And to be able to grow and to be able to develop and to have authority and responsibility. And I think that's an important point. We've said we need to give them responsibility. We've talked about giving them some authority. The other thing I think we've got to remember if I'm going to empower someone is I need to give them authority and responsibility and authority, but I also need to hold them accountable, right? Together with responsibility is accountability. And that to me is very, very important. If I'm empowering somebody, I'm empowering them so that they can perform. I need to equip them to perform. But sometimes people seem to think that empowerment is their right, right? They have the right to be empowered. In my view, I don't think you have the right to be empowered. I think in South Africa, we should empower people because we have to, and we need to develop people and correct ills of the past. But I don't think anyone has the right to it. We have an unemployment level, as I said, of at least 29%. If you don't want to do it and you don't want to take it seriously, I'll find somebody who does. So it's not a right. It's an opportunity. So as much as I need to give people involvement in decision-making, I need to give them responsibility and I need to hold them accountable for what they have to do. But I need to equip them as best as possible to do as good a job as possible. Okay, so empowerment is not just saying, I'm going to develop you to be the CEO. That's your problem. If you want to become the CEO, become the CEO. But let me equip you now for what you need to do. And hopefully, if you're working for a well-informed company, there are training courses and career planning, etc. I'm not saying it shouldn't be there. But it is your or the individual's responsibility to develop themselves. I need to facilitate that development, enable that development. People need to take their responsibility seriously. They need to take, in my view, take empowerment and empowerment opportunities very seriously. Take the ball and run with it. It's not a right, it's a privilege. But let's equip people to be better and equip people to perform and thereby equip people to grow and develop. So far, does that make sense? Comments, guys? Questions, suggestions?
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying, Cole. So I'm with you.
Other views? Okay.
Carl, maybe from my side, in terms of their career, because I know most of the companies like ours, they force us to develop our staff. But I think as a manager, you can do so much. I mean, you can encourage, you can give them all the necessary, but it also lies with the individual. Whether, like, if you want to become a CIO of an organization, it's your choice. But I can give you so much.
Yeah, and Bogisa, I think firstly, a effective, enlightened company should put effort into developing their people. And I do believe that a good company should put responsibility on the shoulders of the line manager to say on a regular basis, what are you doing to develop your people? And that's right. That's what we should do. But just as much as I must hold you responsible for developing your people have to accept that responsibility. Right? Yep. It is not a privilege. It is a privilege, not a right. So yes, I should say to you regularly, hey, Bogisa, what are you doing to develop your people? Who are you training? But equally so, if your staff are not making an effort and not trying it and seeing it as a right and not a privilege, well, then I'd rather have somebody else take that opportunity. So yeah, I would agree with that. And also, not everyone's going to become the CEO, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then there's another comment here which I was hoping to see, which I've just seen come up here, and that is trust. Okay, and that to me is probably one of the most important words I've seen in this chat with relation to empowerment, and all of the others are correct. I'm not questioning them. But to me, trust is vitally important because the foundation, in my opinion, the foundation of empowerment is trust. I need to trust that my people will perform. I need to trust that they will develop. So it's almost, in my view, the philosophy of empowerment. I can train, I can develop, I can involve people in meetings, I can give them tools. But if I expect my people to behave like idiots, they will behave like idiots. Right? If I expect people to mess up, they will mess up. Yep.
What would happen if, I fully understand the word trust now. That's what a manager obviously expects from his employees and stuff. But what happens where the trust is, the problem of trust is by the manager and not by the people? Well, there isn't any reason for the colleagues to trust him as a manager.
Yeah, well, that's exactly, that's partly what I'm talking about. So when I'm talking about trust, I'm saying it's not that my staff must trust me, it's that I must trust my staff. So I've got these people, I want to empower them. So I'm going to give them skills, I'm going to give them opportunities, I'm going to say, here's something for you, here's a responsibility, I'm going to involve you in the decision, I'm going to upskill you, etc., etc. But as much as I do all of that, which I see as the mechanisms of empowerment, I've also got to do what I call the philosophy of empowerment, which is trust. But not them trusting me trusting them and saying, listen, I've given you skills, I've given you this, I expect you to succeed. I expect you to do a good job. But when I'm empowering you, in inverted commas, and in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, hey, you're a bit off, you're probably never going to get this right, you're probably going to fail, the chances are the person will fail because you've got what we call self-fulfilling prophecy. So to me, the foundation of empowerment is my expectation that my people will succeed, my expectation that my people will do well, my expectation that my people will flourish. And they won't always do well, but I cannot go into something expecting people to fail because then they will fail. Does that kind of make sense, guys?
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
So all of those things are right, and training and development and all of those, everything you've got on your list is 100% correct. But guys, if I expect people to fail, they probably will fail. The foundation, the philosophy of empowerment, the foundation of it is that I trust my people, I expect them to succeed, I expect them to do well, I expect them to try hard. If they fail and they drop the ball, that's fine. We'll pick them up, we'll dust them off, and we'll try again. But bottom line is I must expect success, not expect failure. Okay. Roxy, does that make sense and correlate with what you were thinking?
Sorry, yes, it does, Paul.
Okay, cool. Cool, great. Any other comments?
On trust issues, I think I've seen it in my organization where you have subordinates that don't trust the manager, and in such situation, you find that even if you try to engage them, they just keep quiet. They don't say how they feel, maybe about an instruction. They just take what you say and keep quiet.
Yeah. Quite correct. And Musa, that's basically when you're dealing with, here you're not even talking in empowerment anymore. Here you're just talking about employee engagement. Huh? There isn't the foundation for effective management of people and motivation of people is engagement, it's involvement. And if there's no engagement, no communication, no trust, then basically you're not going to move much forward. Then it's just going to become a fairly task-orientated way of managing them. I tell you what to do, I threaten you, you do it. And that's one way of surviving, but it's not a very positive, effective, or productive way of surviving. So you have to go back and here you're talking about a hugely complex issue, because now you're also probably getting into organizational culture, organizational history. Why is it that people do not trust their people, etc.? Does that kind of make sense? It's a very big topic, that trust, but the trust of the people of the manager here, I'm talking about the trust of the manager of the people.
Makes sense, Ken.
Okay. Okay, so guys, what we're saying is if you have a look at the list of the stuff that you came up with in terms of what I have to do to empower my people, a very good list. Don't forget trust. And in the exam, there could well be a question on saying, if you were managing Aztec, how would you empower those people? In your notes, there's quite a good article or section by a guy called Charlton, who gives some very good ideas around empowering people. Okay. Happy with that?
Yes, happy, Carl.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we've talked about empowerment. We've talked about basically many of these different things. What I want us to do is I want to have a look at the concept of performance management. So let's just have a look at the basic things. We've talked about directing and guiding. We've talked about delegating. We've talked about developing, motivating, empowerment. All right. And now, it was only a small degree on developing. We're going to come back to that. But what I want to do is I want to look at how do we monitor and control. And we've had a number of references this morning to performance management, how we manage performance and performance managed discussion. So what I want to do now, and it is basically almost an hour that we've been going, is I want to ask you guys, if you can, hopefully you set up those WhatsApp discussion groups, your syndicate WhatsApps, is I'd like you to have a look at the issue of performance measurement and performance management. And basically the syndicate exercise is what we have there. It's on the screen there. And I'm saying discuss the approach followed by one of the companies or divisions in your syndicate to measure performance and to manage performance. What works, what does not work. So basically, let's take a break, but while you're taking a break, sort of have a comfort break and then get together in your smaller groups, your syndicate groups if you can. Let's get back here at 12:20. And basically, I want you to have discussed the approach followed by one of the companies to measure performance and to manage performance. Measure performance meaning, if I work for you, how do you know whether I'm doing a good job or a bad job? Against what do you measure me? But more important, the most important part of your discussion is how do you manage performance? What am I saying there? What is your performance management system or your performance management process? What works, what does not work? Okay, guys, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, let's make it a bit longer. Let's say 12:30. 12:30, we log back in, and in that time, you've had sort of a WhatsApp discussion around how we measure performance, manage performance, what works, what does not work. And really the issue is, tell me about your performance management system, the process you use for performance management, what works, what does not work. Okay, comfortable?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Cool. I'm going to end this, have that discussion, and then at 12:30 we meet again.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, cool, Carl.
Cool. Thank you.